Hi, I'm Ariana. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. So, the whole accounting thing, how did that come into play? Did someone ever pressure you to become an accountant?
No, no one ever pressured me to become an accountant, although weirdly, as a result of making this show, I do have a lot of accountants in my life now. Um, it sort of came from just trying to think of like what was something that uh would be really funny to sort of contrast with wrestling, but at the same time we could subvert what your initial expectations of that might be. In the fact that there are accountants in this world, but those accountants are insanely passionate about accounting.
Yes. Have you always yourself been passionate about wrestling?
Yeah, I've been insanely passionate kind of about a lot of different things. I think that was sort of the kernel that this came from, was like being a person who over the course of their life has wanted to do lots of different things, animation being just one of them. And so sort of that sort of was the seed that started to germinate, that got my brain thinking about trying to tell a story that was about passions and kind of what it's like to follow them.
Who is your favorite wrestler?
Macho Man Randy Savage. Yeah. And his promo with the coffee creamers is like, yeah.
Where did the idea from the show come from in the first place?
Yeah, I think, like I said, I was kind of interested in telling a story about people pursuing their passions. Um, and so I was looking at a couple of other of things at the time. I was looking at like Naruto, and I was looking at Pokemon, and I was sort of feeling that we didn't have anything in the West at the moment that was sort of a world that was unified by a sort of central focus, that was exploring it through lots of different lenses and exploring it as a metaphor specifically to talk about something larger beyond that thing. And so wrestling, something I was always really passionate about and watched, to no end as a kid, sort of immediately came to mind. And then it became the fun about sort of, well, what are all of the ways you can find entry points into this concept? And what are all of the ways that you can use this concept to talk about larger things, some larger universal truths about life?
Yes. So the show is called Invincible Fight Girl. Is one of the ways that Andy is invincible is because she has no quit in her.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that is, if anything, I would say kind of like her superpower. We were very intentional to make it so that any victory she's got, any sort of win she gets, doesn't just come as a result of her being the main character. I don't think we're a type of show that is really interested in just giving just that sort of immediate gratification. But instead, it sort of comes from her tenacity, and it comes from the fact that she's willing to just keep hitting her head against the wall until she breaks through.
Why do you think she has that tenacity?
I think, to me, that is this, she represents the spirit of the younger generation in any industry, in any focus, in any sport. There is always, while all of these hierarchies are established and all of these sort of dynamics are in place, there's always a younger generation that's coming up that is like, screw all that. I don't care about it. Like, I'm gonna come and I'm gonna be the next Mayweather. I'm gonna beat Mayweather. I'm gonna beat Mike Tyson. There's always someone in that younger generation who sort of has that audacity and that hunger. And so to me, that's sort of quintessentially who she is, to sort of contrast this world that is very pre-established and has all of these preconceptions already.
Yes. Um, she is mostly alone in the show. Like she doesn't have a team as a lot of people she encounters has. She picks up people along the way who may or may not be for her as we see. Why did you think she needed to go on this journey alone?
I think a lot of that kind of comes down to my own thinking about what it is like to follow your passions, especially if you happen to face a lot of adversity. Um, sometimes you might have people along with you for the journey, but I think ultimately at the end of the day, it's a lot of self dialogue and it's a lot of self talk. and it's a lot of like you having to sort of contest with your own mind in order to be able to push through the limitations and the barriers you have. So it's really important to sort of try to represent that. And she will eventually get allies. She does get a couple, but it was really important to show that, at least at the start of her journey, like a lot of her progress has to come from her digging deep within herself and finding the motivation to push through.
Yes. There's a lot of Black characters in this show. How did you go about choosing how to highlight their hair texture? Because it's different than other shows have done before, but not in a bad way. Everyone has different hair texture. How did you decide which avenue you were going to go?
Yeah, I think a lot of it was approaching it from a design sensibility
Mhm.
and trying to make things that felt interesting to an audience, but at the same time were sort of reflective of different, truths that exist in the real world. So, for example, Andy's hair being so specific, one kind of she's the protagonist, and so I think you naturally want a silhouette for her that is really striking and immediately recognizable. And I think within that, also making it specific sort of harkens to the fact that black hair is so specific, in the real world.
Mhm. It's also to me like a nod to the power suit and like her accounting aisle background.
Yes, yeah.
What are some of the influence on the show? You had mentioned Pokemon, but what are some of the influences on the show?
Yeah, Pokemon, Naruto, Hunter x Hunter is a big one. One Piece, sort of a master of world building. All of these were shows that we sort of looked at for different reasons, and different things that they did beautifully that we sort of said to ourselves, we really want to try to imbue that into this, and at the same time make something that feels like it's new and fresh.
Yes. You've worked on so many different shows and projects. How did that prepare you and influence you on creating your own show? Because I remember the dialogue she had, like with her parents, for example. I'm like, why does this kind of remind me of Young Love? And then I looked at your IMDb. I was like, oh, you wrote
Yes.
an episode of Young Love. How did those experiences influence you and kind of form you on making your own show?
Yeah, I think I've been very lucky to, before I've gotten to this point, do a lot of different things. And so, in addition to it just sort of broadening my tastes, I think it's made me really effective at being in different scenarios where you have to lead different types of people. And so, I think that's kind of one of the big wins of this show was I think having been so thoroughly prepared from all of the different teams I've worked with and different types of people I've worked with, um, I was able to come to this project and really have a clarity of vision, and also be able to communicate that vision with all of our different team, depending on if they had wrestling background, if they were familiar with it, if they were familiar with anime, or if they weren't familiar with any of it. I think I was really lucky in being able to sort of convey that vision effectively to them so they could all kind of help contribute to it.
Awesome. Well, congrats on the show. I know everyone's going to be excited to see it. And
Much.
hope to talk to you soon as the show goes itself to be continued.
You can continue. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.